Everyone, Cady Coleman is here. Cady, we are so excited that you're willing to do this with us. Uh, as I kind of give you a little bit brief overview, we have 2,000 participants in this program now. We got 400 plus mentors. Everyone's from 48 states plus DC participating, and everyone is here to work to build something very concrete this summer and show off the work. Projects span from technical to journalism to art, and which is very cool. And you're our kickoff speaker for cohort two, so I'm extra excited about that.
Cool. Oh,
So
that's
so you
awesome.
are you are the person we want. Like I couldn't think of someone better to inspire everyone with because you've always inspired me. Um, and so, team, I'll just give a little bit of overview of why I think Katie is so awesome. One, how rare is it?
You turn to sit on?
Absolutely, I get it. Trust me, I'm stuck in a hotel.
Okay.
uh, uh, so Katie gets to wear these cool outfits because she's earned them. Because she is legit an astronaut. Katie is former. I'll just read this because it's so cool. Is
You
former
read it. I
NASA.
have to do one thing off the camera.
Okay,
Don't be
yeah, I'll
curious.
keep going.
Okay.
You keep going.
Okay. Okay.
I'll read it off. Katie is a former NASA astronaut and retired U.S. Air Force colonel with more than 180 days in space accumulated during two space shuttle missions and a 6-month expedition to the International Space Station, the ISS. As the lead robotics and lead science officer, was her kind of key roles on those missions. Katie serves as in a variety of roles within the astronaut office, including chief of robotics and lead astronaut for the integration of supply ships from NASA's commercial partners. Before retiring from NASA, she led the open innovation and public partnership efforts at NASA as the chief technologist, or for the NASA chief technologist. I got to know Katie in that role, and she told me more about space than I ever could even imagine. That the awesomeness of it. For those that don't know, she also has a fantastic book, which I strongly encourage you all to get. The book is Sharing Space: An Astronaut's Guide to Mission, Wonder, and Making Change. It's an incredible read, and I strongly recommend it for everyone. Some of the special things that Katie brings to the table more than anything else is just a degree of pragmatism about everything. And if you haven't also seen her playing the flute in space, I think it's the first kind of duet in space from space, if I remember right. And so, Katie, maybe with that, I wanted to start with because you and I both been to a cool event where we often have talked about like the idea of wonder. And I think there's no concept that inspires wonder more than us looking up at the night sky and seeing stars like as humans and historical. And so with that concept of wonder, I'd love for you to just start with like the moment of true wonder for you with regards to space.
Well, I'm just swapping something I was going to do here.
Yeah.
Now that you asked that,
Oh, perfect. I
um,
teed it up for you.
you did. Um, I think wonder and awe is really are really great words, and to realize that everyone around you finds some sort of wonder or awe in the work that they do or the work that they aspire to. And I think it's finding it like to when you're on a team, it's finding out what is that thing that gets the other person sitting next to you or working next to you. What is the thing that gets them to wonder or awe? And that is so important for you to know and understand about them. And for me, I think I mean, it's always changing, right? But I think it's about exploring new worlds. And I grew up in a household where my dad was in the Navy and exploration was really normal. But he was part of the Sea Lab program. He was a deep sea diver and head of diving, salvage, and experimental diving in the Navy. And so that idea that you might live someplace really no, not many people thought to do that. Many people thought was like crazy, and also was a little dangerous or a lot dangerous. That was normal. The fact that I could be one of those explorers never actually occurred to me in the fairly traditional Navy world that I grew up in. And so
Hmm.
it wasn't until I got to college and Dr. Sally Ride came and spoke at MIT, and I just thought, wow, maybe I could try to do that. And because not everybody needs this, like I think you might have had people here speaking that we are mutual friends of that I don't think need that kind of like introduction or assurance or even permission, like, yes, you could try to do this. But I do. And so that moment with Sally Ride really made a difference for me to think maybe I could be part of this. And I just so much wanted to be on that team and make contributions. And really the fact is once you are chosen, whether they made the right decision or the wrong decision, they have you and you are the person. And you need to bring everything you can and you have to help people see what you bring if they can't.
I'm so glad you mentioned Sally Ride. I was super fortunate to be at University of California, San Diego, where she was
Ooh.
a professor. I never got was never cool enough to be able to get into one of her classes, but I just remember being exposed to some of the people like that were so inspirational. I thought I didn't know that was a choice in life to be as cool as Sally
Right.
Ride. For those that don't know, Sally Ride, first female in space. I mean, just
Well.
well, wait, no
First,
more.
first American woman,
American women in
or first
space. Right.
American woman in space.
Is for
Tereshkova, is
yeah,
the first
right.
woman.
Thank you. Uh, and I just remember that's kind of also why we wanted.
But that's where, I mean, Tereshkova, that was another world for us,
Yeah,
right? And I'm not sure it would have done the same thing for me because it needed to have some commonalities to me.
yeah. And so that this is exactly why I love having people like you here is because hopefully somebody here will go, hey, wait, I can do that too. And maybe you could take us, for people the students who are undergrads right now who are even
Mhm.
thinking about this, and I know you've talked to so many about this, like just even like it's like a job where people go, how do I get that job?
Right. Um, Let me just tell you some
Yeah.
some technical stuff about being an astronaut, just because we get that sort of out of the way in a way, and realize that I have not gone to the web in a while. I haven't looked at exactly the criteria, but in my day, selected in 1992, you needed a technical degree, a technical bachelor's degree, and 4 years of experience, a master's degree plus two, or a doctorate plus none. Was that and I would imagine that so many people in your intern group are going to fulfill those things. And I do think that the place for people who are artistic and storytellers and you know um to date we've had to rely on hopefully technical people that are can can be reasonable storytellers or be taught to. And I really rejoice when people who are experienced storytellers get to go. Anyway, but so in terms of that's in terms of being a NASA astronaut, realize that we're living right now today in a world where there are lots of definitions of the word astronaut. And some people ask me if I resent that someone who went with Blue Origin or Virgin Galactic and spent 3.5 or 4 minutes in space, they call themselves an astronaut. I'm like, as they should. I mean, there's one definition that says if you've gone more than 50 miles, another one that says 64 miles. I think that we are like splitting hairs here, okay? I mean, I'm going to go with the Air Force because I am Air Force definition
Mhm.
is 50 miles. And if you've been there, you've done that. You did the training required for your flight, and
Mhm.
it was not easy, and it is a big deal. And I think you feel it in the training, and you really feel it when you do it, that
Mhm.
this is like once you launch, this is something you cannot undo. Okay, you are there. And I love the fact that with all these different definitions of astronaut, we have become, as astronauts all over the world, a better group. We have an Association of Space Explorers, ASE, Alpha Sierra Echo, um,
Mhm.
that you can look up on the web. You can't get to the secret pages. Sorry, no, but seriously, if you've gone into space, you can be a member. I think if you've done suborbital, it's
Mhm.
a different kind of membership, and it is really just all about why would we not join together all the people who got to do this and compare notes and also compare possibilities of what we can do together, you know?
That
So
might
anyway,
be the coolest club I've ever heard of, to be honest. And it's
well,
like I have like so much like FOMO.
oh, but the same things happen in this club. Nobody wants to run for office and all those things, And actually, it takes the right combination of people to do stuff. But having these people, some of them whom have more means, but they actually just have more thoughts and possibilities. And every one of the people that I know that has gone to space, and originally maybe starting with going with the Russians, paying very, very large sums of money. I mean, the only ones
Mhm.
I've seen published are like 20 million, So these are big amounts of money, right? And but they go and they bring some purpose with them, some purpose unique to them, and they come back and they use the fact that they went to be able to do some good down here. There's no question in my mind, and I urge you to research all those people. But we're kind of digressing from, the just if I'm looking at my little green light on my computer, but I'm hopefully seeing, all of you out there. Some of you would like to be astronauts, and some of you, I'm sure, actually will become astronauts. I mean, we're not going to stop going to space, and just in this country, in other countries, in different ways, and I think it's a wonderful world, and realize that if you have the current requirement has increased to be a master's degree in a technical field. Okay. But
Mhm.
if for NASA astronauts, I have no idea on the other folks, but um, and so if you have those things, then you are qualified. And in my day when we interviewed, they took um, many applications, boiled it down to about 100, and brought us in groups of 20 and interviewed us for a week. It's really a 6-day physical and a 1-hour interview.
Wow.
And it was about we're also lab rats, and so it's about making sure that you understood, not that you understood, making sure that actually you were a good research subject. And it's an unfortunate fact that if you had a pretty complicated medical history, it complicated your your ability to be a good research subject. And some of those things change and those rules change. And so if you hear like, oh, my eyesight's not good enough, I mean, these are all things that evolve and change.
I
Right.
know I got cut early on for my eyesight issue back
Well,
in the
and
day,
even when
and
I
now
was
it's not
doing,
it's not a thing.
well, it is still actually a
Oh,
thing. I mean, it's still a thing, but it's
oh.
more lenient. I mean, but these things that were things,
Mhm.
I mean, they just in the beginning they were so conservative. So my bigger point is like there's all sorts of ways to say, oh, that probably can't be me. And there's
Mhm.
a certain percentage, it says, not many people get to do this, but actually some do. And it could be you. And also, it's not for everyone. We have people that apply that are professors, or I mean, everyone is a professional, has been doing real work for a while. And you give up a certain amount of that when you join the NASA astronaut corps.
Mhm.
And it might not be the best you know, purpose for you. And it's not that like you can't do it and you don't have to get picked and then turn it down. That's kind of rude actually. But well, because it's a hard selection.
You're taking a slot for somebody.
Well, and they'll figure it. They'd figure it out. But
Mm.
I think anyways, realize that thinking about who you are is really the thing. And I told DJ that I love to talk about applications and applying. And people ask me how I became an astronaut. And without meaning to belittle that question, I say I applied. And you have to, this is like, it doesn't change no matter what the medium is. Okay. Before it was on paper, right? And there are things that were typed on a typewriter, right? And we weren't quite at that when I was applying, but I think actually maybe we were actually.
Mm.
Yeah, I think my mom typed the 30-page, you know, security question or
Oh
something.
yeah, the SF-86.
Yeah. My mom was an executive secretary, so she's really good
This is
typer.
really fast at time. I was like, oh,
Yeah,
this must be SF-86. It's a little sad that I know these documents.
exactly. But and it's different now. You're applying through USA Jobs, but the bottom line
Yeah.
is that somebody's going to look at that application, and you have to find a way to write it in a way that represents you. I tell people, if you don't tell people who you are, they cannot pick you. for
Mhm.
whatever you want to do. And it apply, I mean, and in fact, for astronaut, you fill out an application for you on USA jobs, hated by all, loved by none. Because I mean, there is no formatting. There is, I mean, I'm serious, no bold, no italic, no nothing, no paragraphing, no, it's awful, right? Realize everyone is in the same awful soup, but you have to find a way in the questions that they ask to express who you are. And I always
Mhm.
recommend to people, this is kind of generic suggestions, but well, I'll just tell you that when those get evaluated within the astronaut office, the way it used to be is the scientists would and evaluate the science people. That means, like, I'm a chemist. I am evaluating astrophysicists. I mean, it doesn't mean that a real astrophysicist is not going to
Mhm.
evaluate, but you're one of the people that touch that application, right? And you're a vote. And um, and I think that realizing that people are going to do their best. I mean, you might think that it's a system that is just dying to cut you and go, oh, they don't have that. Bye. Right? It is they're trying so hard to keep people in there till the end because there are just things that end up, medical things that take people away. And but you want to do people a favor and make it easy for them. And I think, when someone tells me something in like I am a chemist. I really hated physical chemistry. I'm more a pour it together kind of, bench chemist, polymer chemist,
Mhm.
making stuff, including dinner, right? Um, and and so if somebody tells me something in really complicated astrophysics, or if they tell me that you invented the gluon or the something or the something, it is actually not going to resonate with me. I'm like, well, it has a
Mhm.
name, you know. I mean, you want to tell
Well,
people.
what's your advice for, like, I think one of the things that we've seen for everyone here is they're learning to, tell their story of the project they're working on. They're learning to tell their story about their value proposition for future employment, internship, other
Exactly.
activities.
This is the
What's
same thing.
your advice to like, I'm wondering if you have a playbook or things that you typically tell people, like, hey, these are the things that I remind you of about this.
Um, I think explaining what you do, the very first sentence, the very first thing that somebody reads is a sentence or a phrase or whatever format is working for you, that explains what you have done that was meaningful and why it was important in
Mhm.
language that your neighbor, um, who is, 65 years old, man or woman, can explain or can
Mhm.
understand. And that when you run into somebody in the grocery store and you're telling them what you're proud of, and it's somebody that you care about explaining to, you know, think about the explanations that you give to them because sometimes, you're like, well, and it has led to trouble in my life. I will say I'm a polymer chemist, and my mom started working at a new bank, and when I went to go visit the bank, and this was before I was an astronaut, but I was a polymer chemist, and she goes, "This is my daughter who was on the team at MIT that invented the plastic Coke bottle." I was like, then I was like, Mom, I was explaining polymers are examples of plastics, or what,
You
when
got attributed.
so anyway, so be
I'll
careful.
just,
Yeah.
yeah, I'll just remind the students, participants, you can put your questions, and we're going to get to a bunch of those. Kitty, can I switch it up a little bit to one of the things that's been a thematic through this area that I think also ties into this with you pointing out of, like, the
Only
notion
if
of,
you let me
oh,
tell my late night story later. Okay.
oh, well, let's go to the late night story first.
I think you should write down, on a piece of paper or type or whatever you're fast on the phone, whatever the mechanism is. I want to type the things that you are proud of. And think of
Mm,
some areas so you don't forget anything, like broad areas, family, your profession, other stuff you studied that you thought that really caught you, other stuff you studied that you hated, but you made yourself get through because you had to. I mean, so think of the areas, think
mm,
of all the things that you've done that you're proud of, and write those down as if no one will ever read them.
mm,
Okay? Do this really give yourself permission to really write down stuff and say, this is what I'm proud of. And I say this because when I'm looking at applications, if somebody tells me they managed a summer camp full of like 200 kids or they were a lead counselor or whatever, I'm like, holy shit, this is who I want on my team. They know
mm,
procedures, they know safety, they know parents, they know bureaucracy, they know that something small can be very big. I mean, I recently went to out west to a big cattle ranch, and where like 100 125,000 acres, really big, huge, divided up and taken and sort of run by six different cowboys, one woman and five guys, and who then manage an inordinate number of, I mean, it's just amazing. And these people need to know safety. There's no, I mean, there, where you are and you have a problem, there's no one there to help you fix it. I mean, you can get on the radio, if you're in the right place in your territory, but I mean, I'm like, these are people that really, so things that you've done, if you took care of your family, I mean, that's really hard to do. Go to school full time and do your family stuff and family too, if your parents have been working, and recognize yourself for all these things. And I think when you wake up in the morning and you read that list, you realize, just let go. Is this something that a future employee would want to know? This is the person I might be hiring. Okay, so
Mhm.
now it's your turn, DJ.
Well, that was the direction I was exactly going on that. And I would take it even one step further to ask you, you look at that late night list, and
Mhm.
many of the students are, at this point in time, I think we were all in our lives trying to figure out, like, what's our passion? Where's our energy go? These types of things. And I'm curious, how did you hone in into what you're passionate about, and really develop that passion muscle, if that is a thing for you?
Um, I think hanging out with people, or at least having access to them, now remote access or whatever, who um who understand that you might want to do something, that you think you have it in you to be part of something important, that you have ideas, not that you're, I mean, like I'm somebody that's better at sort of taking things that already exist and figuring out how we can make it better or connect the
Mhm.
people who could actually together make something different. Having the next polymer science idea that changes the world, probably not me, right? But surrounding myself with other people that understand that it's okay to think that you might have something inside you that's important, because you do. That's helpful to me. I mean, not everyone needs that reassurance. And that's kind of what I was talking about in the beginning, that not everybody has to see
Mhm.
somebody that makes them realize, oh, I could do this, right? But I
Mhm.
am one of those people. Um, so I think surrounding yourself, I think thinking, there is it's sort of a paradox, but thinking far ahead, like I'd like to do that thing and be an astronaut. But what's the next
Mhm.
thing that I should do? And people ask me like what they should major in. You should major in whatever you have a passion for. And if you pick something else because you think it will, everyone will say that person should be an astronaut or be a fashion designer. If it's not something you really, or even if it's something, but then you get in the place where you're doing it and it's not working there because it's just not a chemistry that works, so to speak, for you in that place, you have to be in a place that really helps you be you. But
Mhm.
and for me, in a way, I had it. My life got simplified quite a bit in that I didn't have enough money in our family to go to college, and um, and uh, and so I was ROTC undergrad. I really wanted to go to school all at once, and I didn't want to go like at night and things like that. And so I joined ROTC. I had a 4-year commitment. I don't think everybody has to go to a school with a name. I don't think MIT is the place for everyone. It was a
We
place
have
for,
30% of the kids here are have some affiliation with community college.
which I'm on the board of, and I am a
Mhm.
huge fan. And there are such
That's where I
interesting
went.
people, really.
Yeah, started off my career in community college. I didn't get into college, actually, so started, and I'm grateful for the community college system.
When I think,
Best dollar
yeah.
bang for the buck.
Exactly, and such interesting people. I'm in Shelburne Falls, Massachusetts. Look it up on the
Mhm.
map. We're 2 hours west of Boston, an hour north of Hartford, and it's Greenfield Community College. And fascinating people teach at this college. And the
Mhm.
president is an Aspen Fellow, and fascinating as well. She's amazing. So and also, these some of these basic courses. I mean, why should you pay all these gazillions of dollars? And at the same time, you also want a certain experience. And I did row crew in college as well. Um, and so in a way, I was ROTC. I mean, I'll just tell you, I went to
Mhm.
ROTC. I wanted to go to grad school maybe junior year, sophomore year, the Air Force told me they would make that decision for me, and I could just assume it would be a long time before I did that. And it helped me make a decision between for junior year and senior
Mm.
year, and do I keep doing undergrad research or do I keep rowing crew? Because I can't do both time-wise. And I thought, well, by the time I apply to grad school, I'm gonna, I'm gonna have done some work in chemistry, and so it's not going to matter whether I'm doing this research right now. Whereas if thought I was going to go right out of the undergrad into chemistry, which is a more traditional field, and a little bit more of that
Mhm.
working for someone and then they recommend you and that kind of world. Anyways, so I chose the crew team where I learned
Mm.
so much on the water and off. And then I was driving home from oh, and then I get in the fall, the head of the ROTC said, Miss Coleman, we don't have any jobs for chemists this year. Why haven't you applied to graduate school? And so I took all those tests late, probably did lousy, applied to schools, and actually really I was kind of lucky that I like kind of applied chemistry, polymer chemistry that's a little less traditional. And so it was okay to have skipped some of that apprenticeship. And UMass and Amherst is actually one of the best places in the world for polymer chemistry
Mm.
that I went. And actually, even there was a really nice guy at MIT I interviewed there too, and he said, "Where else are you thinking of?" And I said, "I'm thinking of UMass in case." And he goes, "Go to UMass." I said, "Don't come here at MIT and work for you." He goes, "We don't really have a department. It's clear you want to work in a department,
Mhm.
and I really think that we're not ready for you." And I say, "Go there, get your degree, come back here and postdoc." And that's a very kind and generous kind of advice to give somebody. Anyways.
That's really powerful.
Yep.
Well,
And so then I
let
started my four-year ROTC thing in the Air Force. I applied to the
mm.
Astronaut Corps. Not simple. I mean, really fought to do that. I was a very non-traditional candidate. I'm not a fighter pilot, not a flight test engineer, first military scientist, and got into the Astronaut Corps on my first try. So I have led a charmed life, and I really didn't apply for a job until I was like in my 50s. So I mean, I've
That's
applied for
amazing.
things, but not a job until
Yeah.
I was in my 50s.
Well, let's take. There's a whole bunch of questions that have come in I want to get to, and there's a little bit of theme through them that actually I think the first one is we're in the first week of the second program. People are trying to find team and figure out what good team looks like.
Hmm.
You've talked a lot about team in your book. You have a lot of incredible lessons about that, and including, about trust and how to think about trust and friendship. Yeah, that is exactly the book. And I will repeat it again. It is a must read for people. I've also given out many copies to people because it's so
Thank
good.
you. Yeah.
Uh, um, could you talk to us about team and some of your philosophy of team? Because the reason I think it's so important to talk to astronauts about team is once you're in the air or in space, there's no one else coming for you. You are the team that you're stuck with.
Well, and do they have to find a team within this intern community?
They typically do. They don't have to. They are
Hmm.
flexible. They can do whatever they want.
Hmm. But still, you'd think you're picking your team, but actually the possibilities are limited. And it's the same thing with astronaut teams. We are not picked for our personal compatibility. And I think we're very fortunate in being able to when we get to space, it's actually so crystal clear that no one else is coming. You are the crew. And that actually becomes very clear in your training. You do enough, beforehand that you're doing stuff together. And we're all going to be very, very different from each other. Can I show you a picture real quick?
Yeah,
Just to be,
please.
and I won't go on and on or anything. Let me just, so I'm doing sharing.
I mean, I would tell everyone here if you get a chance to ever see Cady live in her presentation, where she shows a lot of imagery from space, you should absolutely go. Be like, get up early and just stand in line.
Oh, there's no line, but let me just, I don't know, just real quick do, oops. Okay, and this Zoom sharing. I
Is
get
Zoom
faster.
share?
There we go. There we
Should
go.
allow us to share.
Yep, yep. And share sound. I don't think it matters, but we'll just do those things. Okay. Here we go. So this is my space station mission. This is the space station. A picture of on the left is the space shuttle. On the right is the stack itself of, and that's really the place we live in. It's about 10 modules the size of train cars without the seats in them. Some small train cars, some big train cars. So it's a really big place. You can see we're pretty close to Earth. But this shows you that this is our three-person crew. I flew up to the station on the Soyuz. This is myself, Dmitry Kondratiev, and Paolo Nespoli. Dmitry from Russia, Paolo from Italy. And I use this picture, and Dmitry knows that I say this, to say that this is a picture of all of us really excited about going to space. And people laugh, right? Because Dmitry doesn't look like that. And that was really my first lesson was this is a picture of Dmitry Kondratiev excited about going to space. And so when I, who often need some reassurance and like, oh, yes, Cady, let's listen to your idea kind of person, when I am looking at the face and saying, here's my idea, I could be daunted. But I had to find a way. I mean, I knew that that's not what Dima meant, right? And I knew that that's not what our situation would tolerate. And I needed to find a way to pretend that Dmitry was nodding at me saying, what's your idea? Because actually, he's not a very expressive on the outside person, but we all, we're all on the same team. And I knew that that person was inside there. I just had to figure out how I could make sure I remembered that. And in Paolo, it's a little bit, easier. Um, to see that. And so we're really pretty different from each other. And when you're saying how to pick your team, this is us in the Soyuz, and we only spent, I mean, we spent a lot of training in this, but it takes 8.5 minutes to get up to space. In our case, it took about 44 hours to parallel park, not because it was bad, but just because that's the way the orbits worked. And the most
Mhm.
magical time ever, but it is a small place to be altogether. And then when we get to space, there's three people waiting. And this is when we were going up and down with the Soyuz. Now it's a little
Mhm.
bit different with the Soyuz plus the SpaceX, but they have crews of seven. But there's now we're a crew of six because three people were up there. We're three people. Now we're six, and that's Scott Kelly on the right and his two Russian colleagues. And now
Mhm.
we're a group of six. A couple months later, three go home. Those three, Scott and Oleg and Sasha, go home, and we're the grown-ups, Paolo and Dmitry and I. And then three more come. And so we're always learning how to be kind of part of two teams or two different teams of six. And this is like a minute long, DJ, and then I'll just end here.
Yeah, this is I keep going.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what's there. So this is launching, and this is in Russia, and I mean it's a smaller rocket, so you feel every single bit of that propulsion in your butt. And this is us coming in for rendezvous and docking. You're going to see my favorite scene here. This is it. This is what it's like up there, where you are flying everywhere, and you look at the little tiger tucked into the robot. I'm picking up a thing that weighs about 300 pounds. I'm doing fluids experiments. When you want to stop or be somewhere, you have to kind of tuck in your toes. I'm a musician, and so I brought flutes. It was a way to share my space up there, so to speak, by bringing flutes that belong to other people. And then this is the station up there, and this is what it looks like out that window, which is really amazing. Um, let's see. And so th this is our second crew. Like, remember I talked about three go home, three more come. And so we're always figuring out these people. And getting back to your original question, I mean, here's us, okay, in our straight little suits, okay, and this is us trying to look cool. We may or may not have succeeded in looking cool here, right? Okay, there's all sorts of different pictures of each crew. This was the artist at NASA. If anybody's a Beatles fan, this is the cover of the Abbey Road album, and it was actually showed Abbey Road, and everything was signed and everything. And at the last minute, NASA got cold feet and wouldn't use the actual cover, so it looks like a street at NASA, but it still looks like Abbey Road, and I get to be barefoot and have blue nail polish on, which I just happen to have. And so, how do we go from being, that crew back here to this crew that, I mean, you saw these pictures. We are all very, very different from each other, and we had to figure out how to appreciate each other. And so, when you're looking for your team, I want to quote one of my classmates, Wendy Lawrence, Navy captain, one of the first women in the Navy to fly and also road crew at the Naval Academy. And Wendy is known for saying, find your comfort zone and stay out of it. And you might think that refers to whether you should be like climbing up mountains or jumping off buildings like Spider-Woman or whatever. But I think it also really applies to teams where it may not be comfortable, but and I'll just and so I'll just tell the lesson of this story, this picture right here. The lesson of this picture is that our crew, our space station crew, as well as Kelly's crew, the shuttle crew that came up while we were there, one of the two, we all went to the White House. And so in this picture, you see seven individuals, and I say that there's a couple people that stand out. You know, President Obama is the only person of color. He's the only president. I'm wearing the only thing that looks interesting or colorful. One of the Kelly brothers looked at the other and said, "You didn't tell her about that change of wardrobe." But I do actually look quite good in this picture, and I stick
Mhm.
out. But actually, even the identical twins in this picture are very different people from each other. And I really, in realizing that everyone on your team has got they have things that they can do that even they don't know what they can do, and it is your job. I'm just escaping here. Whoops, now you're seeing bad things. Stop sharing. There we go. It knew I didn't want to do that really. Um,
Mhm.
anyways, um, in your crew, it's just so important to embrace people that think differently than you do. It's not comfortable. You can set guidelines for how you have discussions, how you make decisions so that people are all heard. I think some structure to that is helpful. There's a woman named Lindy Elkins Tanton, who is the principal person on the Psyche mission. And when she was ahead of the School of Earth and Space Exploration at ASU, where I was adjunct for a while, and faculty members, no one was allowed to speak a second time until everyone had been able to speak on a certain subject. And she would remind people of these kind of Quaker rules. And say, so you might not want to speak too long the first time because you might not get another chance. And that kind of
Mhm.
structure helped, and it created an atmosphere where like there was one point they were decided they're going to hire in cohorts, that it helps to hire several, minorities at one time so that they actually have some sense of community without feeling like the only person. And to have really candid discussions. And Lindy said, so we're going to be doing some creative hiring here. And everybody needs to know that means we're going to have a lot of people on committees. We want to have women and minorities on these committees. And that means that the women and minorities are going to have to give up some of their other work they're doing in the department because we can't have them doing the same thing. And so, plain speaking, by having some structure. I yak a lot, DJ. You're
No,
welcome
this is
to
great. And
wrangle me
if
in.
everyone sees me smiling so much, I've seen these photos and videos of Katie's, I don't know how many times. And every time I'm just still in awe. And it just gives me wonder of just like how much adventure you have. I want to go one more thing on space, and then I want to turn to advice.
Okay.
Um, on space, the thing that I don't know how many times I've told people this story, where I have two of them. One is with you, and the other's with a friend of ours, Kenji, where
Oh,
it's like
Kenji.
for first time, like you think about putting on a spacesuit is like, it seems like you don't realize how big a spacesuit is and how bulky it is and these things.
Mm-hmm.
And the story that you told me is about basically how you had the women had to hack the spacesuit because it didn't come in like all the right sizes. And I also remember Kenji telling me like how to get the helmet on his head. He has a really big head, and just realizing like, wait, we don't actually customize some things, but we have to figure out how to make our environment adapt for us sometimes to still accomplish the mission. So I'd love
Mm-hmm.
for you to tell your story about the spacesuits, which for everyone else to know, it's in better detail in the book too. But I'd love for you to talk about it.
Um, and I will just while I'm talking, I'll bring up three slides.
Mhm.
Let's see. There we go. Well, it's actually five, but and that is that I when I got there, there was a small spacesuit. There was an extra large, or there was an extra small, small, medium, large, and extra large spacesuit. Well, they never produced the extra small, okay? And so um, I ran in a small. I was picked to do spacewalks on my first two missions, not for planned spacewalks, but if anything happened. But still, it was a big deal to be that person. And that was in a small suit, which is still very, very big. But when it came to the space station, they decided they're only going to support the mediums and the larges. So no small spacesuits. It affected a third of the women, which is about eight people. I mean, it depends how you measure who and who fits. And I will say that I am definitely the smallest person to qualify in the medium suit, and that's why I'm just going to share this here. Um, that just shows you that it's really big. And part of the problem in having a suit that's too big is that the suit weighs about 300 pounds. So we train in a swimming pool. And they weigh us out. They put weights on that suit so that even though we're filled with air, we don't sink, but we don't float. And somebody really small in suit just has a really larger air bubble. And it's like you and your exercise ball have decided to go for a little swim. And so what happens is that you because that all that big air bubble is trying to get up to the surface and you're trying to reach over and do something and you can tell that the people who are coaching you and evaluating you are like, why doesn't she just turn a little bit more to the left? Doesn't she know? And so anyway, so it's very difficult in a large suit or in a suit that is very much too big for you. And this is a picture. So the way I became a space, and I'm sorry, I'm babbling here, DJ, but
No.
um, that if you wanted, here's the big thing. If you wanted to go to the space station and live there and work there, you had to be qualified in the spacesuit. And now 8 people cannot do that unless they qualify in a suit that is much too big for them. And for most of them, it actually really could not work out. And the words that were spoken at the Monday morning meeting in the astronaut office, a place that I loved working and people that I loved working with, were, but don't worry, we've looked ahead at the manifest and we have all of the spacewalkers that we need. In other words, we are not going to miss you. Like we're not going to miss the things that you bring to spacewalks, right? And it was really it's shocking to have that happen. It did actually, it wasn't a surprise. It happened over years. And so this picture of me kind of smiling is the way talk about this is that I cheerfully showed up at meetings that I was not invited to. And it's not that people don't like me or that people don't want me there. It just never occurred to them to invite me to the spacewalking meetings. And even to the day that I left NASA, they'd go, "Do you fit in that? Do you fit in the medium spacesuit?" I go, really, if you look and really look close here, you think this chest looks will actually fit in a small spacesuit? I mean, it's really very tight. So medium is my size. And and I'll just show you that here's a couple pictures and I'll come back to being on screen there. This is us with our tools, and you see me smile. I am smiling at all these pictures. I mean, you have to use all of your tools, and one of my tools is to be easy to get along with, and to be somebody that can just do some play acting that pretty soon I believe as well that I am having the time of my life and can't wait and would like to actually stay in this spacesuit that is killing me forever. And in fact, the fact is I actually barely notice that it's just grueling because I am just reminding myself that this is what I want to do and this is how I'm going to do it. And I am just going to have the best day ever. And I got to have a spacesuit up on the International Space Station. So let me just see if we're in the right place here.
Mhm.
Stop
I mean,
sharing.
one of the things that is remarkable, just to connect to threads, people heard me tell a story about how Megan just would walk into the cabinet meetings and just take a seat. And it's something that always I think is very an important lesson is like if there isn't a seat at the table, sometimes you just pull up a chair. And then if you're there long enough, people just realize, oh, I guess you're supposed to be here.
I love that analogy. And actually, that's something that in the spacewalking stuff I am proud of, in that I didn't get to do a spacewalk. It would have made, probably the best book ever, all that happened. And then she wrote a book about doing a spacewalk. But I mean, nothing broke, and that we
Mhm.
could go out and fix. And but actually the bigger fact is that I made people think about people a different way.
Mhm.
And the fact that they would be so surprised that I was good, but then I mean we had metrics and I had better grades in spacewalking than more than half the people. And I just think that and they have a group of pictures that they hang outside on the locker room wall outside the locker rooms, and they put a picture of me up on the wall. And that meant
Oh,
a bunch of years later, and that
huh.
really meant the world to me. But every one of us in our own way. I mean, the 2 women doing spacewalks. I'll just a little non sequitur here.
Mhm.
For the Artemis mission, if you go and you look up the Artemis 2 mission and you look up their conversation with the space station astronauts, I think it was Expedition 74. So they're talking back and forth, ship to ship. It is the most genuine and joyous conversation. you'll see. And I think it really shows you who those people are. But Jessica Watkins and Christina
Mm.
Cook. Jessica was on the space station during Artemis 2, and Christina Cook was on space station, and they are the two that did the first all-woman spacewalk.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's so cool. Well,
Yep.
I know we only got about 14 minutes left, but the part I want to go to is because there's a fair number of questions about this is also mentorship and the role
Hmm.
of mentorship. And people have asked about how to find a mentor and what does a good mentor look like. And I would love for you to give how you think about mentorship and what's the advice. I think we've been all fortunate to have been mentored by incredibly helpful people to steward our careers. Uh, what's your view on mentorship?
I think mentorship company, you can call it different things. I mean, I think that you can mentor each other, right? Because each of you has skills that the other ones don't have. Um, I think it's really important. I think it's generous. I have mentored some people in a formal way. I'm probably a little bit, well, I don't know if I am a little bit self-critical, but I feel like it's actually warranted. And I've been part of some of these mentoring programs, and I
Mhm.
feel like I haven't spent enough time. I try to make sure that the things you're really present in some instances and places. But it was a time when my book was coming out and very busy.
Mhm.
Anyways, but I'm very. It's really inspirational. Actually, I think it inspires you to mentor other people and to realize that you
Mhm.
can make a difference. Um, in terms of finding one. It's almost more that I think you have to just go to places and be you in a department, be you in the cafeteria. I mean, probably no one's going to come over and say, I'm your mentor, unless they have a formal assignment kind of project, right? And I think you find them in surprising places, and they don't always have to be exactly in your field because you have a
Mhm.
whole life. You have a whole world that you're trying to construct together that is the one that you have. And so my freshman advisor at MIT was a literature major from somewhere, I forget, but and that guy, I had then, the king of material scientists, Professor Augustus Witt. I had different, very specialized chemists and things like that. And the person that I went to for 4 years to really figure out what to do was this freshman advisor.
Mhm.
And there's a woman that was the advisor in our dorm, and so from the time I was a junior, and I just saw her this morning on her way through. She and her husband continued to live at MIT, and basically a bunch of us were adopted. And they said, Cady, you have an incomplete in French, and now you're going to flunk it if you don't finish it, and you're not going to graduate. I mean, I was a junior, and so we still had another year. I was like, and they're like, no, you will show up to our apartment, Cady, every night for 20 minutes, and you will work on that paper for 20 minutes. And I needed that kind of help, and so.
Mhm.
I think if the more time you spend just kind of like trying to understand the people around you, I think the mentorship happens kind of naturally
Mhm.
or can, and you should realize when it sort of sneaks up on you and both, realize, oh, I am a mentor to this person, or, this person's important to me and I should tell them
Mhm.
what I'm getting from this relationship.
Yeah. I think this is one that resonates for people. People also have brought up imposter syndrome a fair amount. And there's a question
Hmm.
also about this, which is somebody brings up is, what if being you is awkward? How do you
Hmm.
not be awkward in a conversation? I have my take on that, but I'd love to hear your take.
Well, I did actually prepare something special for you guys.
Yeah.
Which is, I saw a guy give an entire talk with no PowerPoints, only t-shirts. And I knew we were going to talk. And so I have my jacket, and you see me, and I wore my jacket on purpose because I think that we need to
Because
understand
it's cool.
it's cool. Well, it's cool, but also like actually to me, there is not enough chances in this world that someone might see even a picture from this on LinkedIn or somewhere or on your computer and have them and kind of go, oh, looks like she's an astronaut. And it'll change a little bit in their head, and it makes a difference. And that's why my book has this picture on the front.
Mhm.
I fought with the publisher about this because all of us have the chance to make a difference. My friend Mary Robinette Kowal, science fiction author, says
Amazing author.
everyone she
Amazing.
is, and she well, anyway, everyone has the power to change the tone of a conversation. And that's an invaluable kind of thing to help other people be seen. But I think, we all have different kinds of identities. And here's my more standard identity. But I mean, this I think is actually a cooler shirt, right? And it's a shirt made by a company that says people love art. I mean, just that people who have disabilities make all the shirts, all the designs. And this one is about that the disability path and many paths are just not straight. And if you think there's a straight path, I would not go looking for that. First of all, it is boring. Okay. You need to learn some things along the
Mm-hmm.
way, but realize everyone has a crooked kind of path.
Mm-hmm.
You have to think about who you really are. I am a cat person. Okay. And I like to share space. I mean, I know it's the title of my book, but, it's another way to make people think. These are the cats in spacesuits. This is the cats in spacesuits from the back. Okay. I mean, I realize there are dog people out there. This is another one of my little people love art shirts, but I love that. But this is me too. I'm always, I always like to show up as myself. And often I wear the jacket because it's kind of the most important mission for me. But then this shirt here is actually one that I wear for myself, sometimes on the bottom. And this is my rowing shirt with a T on it. I don't know if you can see the black T there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's my shirt that I got for basically managing to be in the freshman boat at MIT when we were there. And it's like I forget it, and I forget exactly what the thing is, but it reminds me that being on the crew team was really hard. I'm short. I don't have a long reach. My hamstrings are
Mm-hmm.
ridiculously tight, and I know I could change it, but I don't. And but I have.
I'm that person.
But to me, I think this is actually a good team thing. I know we're ending here,
Mm-hmm.
DJ, but is that you have to bring all your gifts and you have to get all the free points. Okay. I am somebody that I'm left-handed, I'm reasonably ambidextrous. Well, and being on the crew team when people show up and somebody doesn't show up for practice, if you are the person who's not the strongest person and doesn't have the greatest reach in the boat, you need to bring all your other cards. And so one of them is I have really good balance. And I am ambidextrous pretty much. And I made it so, and I was like, I am going to be able to row both sides so that I can sit in any seat, so that I can be useful. And also, in the end, I'll just share a compliment that happened for me was that the coach of our team, I rowed for 4 years, and we were actually second in the nationals. Um, at MIT, and he asked the coxswain who she thought was the most valuable person in the boat, and they talked about the stroke and the this and that, and he said, it's Cady, Cady sees, and I'm sorry to brag, but I'm gonna brag. Cady sees everybody on the team. When they walk in the boathouse, she understands who they are, what kind of day they've had, and who they need to connect with, even if it isn't her, to be able to be present in the boat. And so each of us has different shirts that we wear, different gifts that we bring. I think sometimes we call some of these things soft skills. And every one of these skills is desperately important when you're trying to make your team for your project, for your invention. If you're not the storyteller, join with a storyteller. I joined with a storyteller. This is a great book. I will say I did write it, but I wrote it with someone, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I wanted to get my messages out. I would never have finished it by myself, just not my way, right? I do almost everything better collaboratively with somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And
That so resonates with me. If I have to work alone, I don't do it. It's my
Mhm.
thing. Cady, there's a theme also across a couple questions here about how
I
do
can
you
stay as long
get.
as you want. I know you have a
Oh,
tradition, but
all right. Well,
whatever.
no,
Yeah.
we'll see if I can cram a few more in here
Yep.
for
Okay.
this because
I will answer more shortly.
people want to know, how do you develop competency in a new area quickly? How do you come up to speed quickly on things or learn in a new area where there isn't a lot of material or it's uncharted territory?
Um, I'm a big I'm a big asker of other people for advice. And also, I mean, because um, I'm a lifelong learner. I like to learn stuff. I always feel like I need to know everything. Like I need to know astronomy and this and that. And you can't know everything, but you can decide to know a piece of it. I just saw a thing on Claude. I am ridiculously behind in you know, AI kind of things. Saw a thing that said, 2 days and you will know everything you need to know about God. I'm like, I am gonna do that. Well, maybe not this weekend, but anyways, I ask people what way, but also think about what way actually is the way that you list that you can hear things. And some people, it is reading a book by themselves. And for me, it is having somebody tell me about it. And even I remember in physical chemistry, which was pretty miserable for me, you read along and it goes, and so it works out like this. And it's got like an equation. I go, equation.
As you can see, and you're like, what? I
And
don't see
but
anything.
but to some people, this is a sentence. And so finding that
Mhm.
person, and maybe, you figure out what ways you can trade. What are the things you can do for that person?
Mhm.
Maybe they're a shy person and you help them be comfortable at a party because and you say, I am not leaving I am going to stay right here. And that way, if you like the people I'm talking to, then you can talk to them. But otherwise, but I am not leaving you. I mean, we can all do different things for each other, you know?
Mhm.
And you can, and if somebody can tell me how those things become sentences, it's really valuable to me.
Mhm. What another question from people is, what's the material difference between a super experienced astronaut and a new astronaut?
Um, there's lots of different things to learn. And I used to think, I was a chemist, I was a good chemist, and when we had mission specialist astronauts and pilot astronauts. So we had pilot astronauts, mission specialists, which were broken into scientists and engineers and flight test engineers or military folks, right? And I'm like, I get these people going to drive, really experienced. I get these people, really specialists. Why do we need these ones? And I realized over time that getting getting a mission off the ground is not actually rocket science. I mean, there's some discipline to it. There's a point at which it's dangerous to change the plan,
Hmm.
even though you clearly see a way the plan could be better. And I am a person who sees many possibilities, and I'm a verbal person. And we had to work this out with our crew when I can talk. And not that I felt constrained, but you have to figure that out when people can hear what you have to say. But I had to learn that sometimes it's too late to change the plan because in the end, not everybody will get the changes and mistakes will be made, or in changing the plan, you haven't anticipated what the effects are. I mean, you see this in the movies all the time.
Mhm. Yeah,
So
we the
yeah,
one I find all the time is is a classic. We can disagree, but once we commit, we commit. We're all in.
yes,
There's
exactly.
no, we're not second guessing. We're not saying, oh, I was right or anything like that.
Right. You could say it afterwards.
You get to say it afterwards when we do the postmortem,
Hey, the
and we can.
debrief. The
Mhm.
debrief is important, I think, of an operation. And I'll tell you about a experience doing survival kind of training-ish kind of stuff. It was
Mhm.
leadership training, and the group was like the leader wanted to go one way, the group wanted to go another way, and at the end of the day, there were two guys that were the leaders. They were sharing the leadership, and the one guy we said, "Hey, aren't we going to have a debrief?" And one guy goes, "Well, it seemed pretty straightforward," and the other guy, pilot guy as well, goes, "You know, it really didn't work for me the way we did things today, because." It was clear that not everybody in our group was being heard. And in the end, it was actually also clear that they wanted to go the right way, and we pushed them to go the wrong way, kind of thing. And it took courage to stand up and say that into a more senior person, even though there's no seniority on this kind of trip, right? Um, I was co-leaders with Tracy Caldwell Dyson, who's astonishing and amazing. We
Mhm.
felt a little unheard at times, and so we actually gave each of them cat names and waited for them to figure it out. Sylvester, Garfield. Anyway.
It's interesting because I remember the national security team in the White House at one point was all women, and they had to really figure out. And I mean, all phenomenal women and well deserving of those roles, but for many times they were iced out or they didn't have a seat at the table.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to return to this because you and this for the final carrying us out here. You talk about making sure to pull up a chair, finding a place, having a voice at the table. When you find yourself out on the margins
Mm-hmm.
and there's people are not giving you space, do you have an advice for people how to pull up that chair and make space for themselves to do it? I mean, obviously you approach it with energy and a smile. That's one of your superpowers. But I'm wondering if you have advice for people how they get to wedge themselves in.
Well, the decision you're trying to make is, boy, do I accomplish this with this group? Or do I go and accomplish things on my own or with another group? Do I give
Mhm.
up on them, right? The one I'm with. And and I think it takes some serious, honest looking and talking with other people about um, about what uh, about what might be wrong, what might not be working. Why can't people hear you? And and with me, um, this is a casual conversation. I'm probably a little more casual than usual. And at the same time, I am a person who kind of thinks with their mouth open, which is not very efficient. I'd like to be very crisp, and sometimes I can be, um, but using terminology, there was so much terminology that wasn't really my own at first in terms of the astronaut world, the space world. I didn't grow up in airplanes, but actually there's some simple ways, and actually just physically practicing those things, um, learning that. I mean, so and just figuring out what are the ways that we diverge, and it's not about judging who's right and who's wrong, because I don't know, it just helps you be on the same page, but it takes some honest
Mm.
looking. Sometimes it's hard to get other people to look, and wonder why they do things this way or that way. But I do think, especially in terms of communication, when you think, why can't people hear me? Um, I don't know. I think you have to look at the communication. It's not really fair if you have to communicate in a way that everyone else can hear you and they don't get your brilliance. And at the same time, the mission is more important than whether you have to go out of your way and do it.
Mhm.
I mean, I felt like, I was a very non-traditional person in the astronaut office. And I loved being in the astronaut office, but I think that sometimes I resented having to do all that stuff, but at the same time, I would look and realize that people weren't getting what I said because I wasn't saying it in a way that they could hear. And in fact, I
Mhm.
got some advice about this with our international group, in that so I knew somebody whose specialty was international traditions. And, when a German person comes and works here, or somebody else goes and works in Russia or whatever. And in fact, she met me and my crew at the Moscow or at the Germany, Munich airport one day for coffee on purpose to meet my crew. And she said, you need to realize, Cady, that it's all work. It's all work to your Russian. And as soon as you say something that is off work during a work discussion, he can't hear it, and it's really distracting. And it's just
Mm.
he's just like, what is she doing? Right. And ironically, the key to us all getting along and actually figuring out that we all shared so much was about family. That if I asked Dimitri about his family and a different person emerged, but I learned I had to do it at the right time, right?
Mhm.
But then once we established that, and he understood that I really wanted to know what he was hearing from home, and I wanted to see pictures of his kid who was very small, and so um, ironically, the thing that was one of the Achilles' heels also was one of the most valuable things to connect. So we had to figure out how to make that happen.
Mm. That's a great place to end on. Cady, just so much appreciation for you.
Well,
And
and vice
like,
versa, DJ.
you're just awesome. Team, show her some like respect with all those, like I don't know what you call them, the Zoom things that float.
Thank you. Hey,
And thank you
can I
for,
Let
yeah,
me tell you one more tiny little thing just as a goodbye, which is
please.
it's in the book as a story in the book, but when I went to go choose, it has to do with the team thing because I just think it brings it home. Is we had a group of 12 people. We needed to pick pick a lab partner for the semester in chemistry. Clearly important to have a really good one. And there was this woman in the group, and she looked like kind of Miss California. She would say with a Land's End kind of touch. Um, and I looked at her, and she's a transfer student. I mean, who knows if she's even smart, right? And she looked at me and decided, nobody that cute could like do chemistry. And we each picked different people in that group. There were guys. Okay. Nothing wrong with picking a guy. And we had perfectly great lab partners. But in the end, we worked literally together for the next 3 years. I ended up with a pretty good job and career, right? And my friend Laura Kiesling is a MacArthur Fellow, longtime Wisconsin professor of
Yeah.
chemistry and actually biochemistry and the microbiome.
I was going to say
And
microbiome, one of the first
exactly,
people on microbiome.
you know her?
I
Read,
mean, I know of her research extremely well. Yeah.
And she taught me, I'm a chemist, but everybody needs different explanations that she
Hmm.
does carbohydrate chemistry, and that carbohydrates are like the overcoats that cells wear that help them
Hmm.
decide whether they want to meet each other or not. And that's really what happened with Laura and I, is we judged each other by what coats we had on, right?
Yeah.
And were we wrong? We were like incredibly wrong. And luckily for us, we gravitated towards each other
Mm.
anyway, and we just spent a day sailing in the Boston Harbor on a tall ship that is one of the three oldest ships in the nation, in the world, still
Mm.
sailing. And I took a piece of that ship, the Alyssa from Galveston, up to the space station, because space sailing and ocean sailing, I mean, they just really, those
Oh,
worlds
wow.
have a, so, meet each other, talk to each other, don't, you know, give each other permission to ask each other who you are. What are the things you love? What do you wish you didn't have to do? Share some things, get to know each other. It takes courage, it takes bravery to do that, a different kind of bravery, but you'll be glad that you did. And it's great to be doing it right now, because you have a lot of it left to do in these cool projects that you'll work on the rest of your lives.
Good advice for life. And boy, the world would be so much easier if everyone followed that. Cady, just
Doesn't mean
thank
I
you
do it all the
again.
time. Thanks very
I
much.
know it's hard to do, but thank you again, and I hope to see you in person one of these
Well,
days soon.
thanks.
I
And
miss
if
you.
folks want to reach out, just reach out. My email is easy. It's Cady@CadyColeman.com. And just, I don't know, I have a nice, just say something about this thing, and I'll just make it the nicest price I can to send the book along at my
Yeah,
cost. If you
yeah.
if you if you want a signed book or something like that. I'm not into salesy, but it's also, I read the audiobook. It's pretty fun.
The
Um,
audiobook's great.
and it's just
Great.
more, and then you can speed it up. Anyways, so take care.
Well, but
Well, reach
remember,
out if
Katie,
you need
slow
to.
is fast, to quote you.
It's true. It's true. And a little slower would be good. So sorry to talk so fast. And thanks for having me, DJ.
All right. Thanks so
Okay.
much, everyone. I know this will just close down right afterwards, but we'll see you on the Discord. Katie, thank you so much as always. And
Thanks so
team,
much.
carry us
And
out here.
okay, see you later.
All right. Thanks.
Thanks,
Okay. And
everybody.
greetings to my friend Megan too.
I
I've learned
will.
I've learned a
Absolutely.
lot from Megan Smith.
So we have
Okay.
all.
Talk to you soon. Bye bye.